Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another Shadowverse Evolve deck profile. This time we're going to be looking at BP09's Black and White Sword deck. This is maybe also referred to as like Token Sword, Monochrome Sword. Aggro Sword really is still just an apt description for it. But I think Black and White Sword is what I've seen the most. It is focused on the Queen of Black and Queen of White, two new cards in BP09. Before we take a look at the deck, as always, this is meant to just be a starting point. There is a card or two in here that I've been a big fan of in testing that I don't see super frequently, but, you know, as usual, test it yourself, see if you like it, make any changes necessary for your local or larger metagame. Deck is a pretty standard aggro deck overall, low curve, lots of 3-ofs, just kind of jamming guys. Very, like, follower-heavy deck. Just a lot of aggressive bodies, a lot of ways to make tokens. Yeah, pretty straightforward. A lot of cards that we've seen in aggro decks throughout the last couple sets, though this set is probably the biggest in terms of, like, update with new cards. We are playing, like, almost every new sword card from set 9, it feels like. And they do a lot of good for the overall shell of the sort of aggro deck. The Evo deck is kind of tight just because we have two 3-ofs here. We really want to play 3 Celia and especially 3 Ralmia Evos, so we're a bit light on space for the rest of our Evos. You could cut Leonidas if you really wanted for the second Prim, or you could cut the third Celia, though I'm a pretty big fan of 3 Celia Evos. If you want to check this out on the deck log page, you can use the code in the bottom right. It's going to be 77CH2, or you can use the link in the description. As I said, our curve is quite low for this deck. We have 9 1-drops, 14 2s, and 10 3s, but only 7 cards going higher than 3 in this deck. With Sword Flash Panther at 4, Monochrome Duel at 5, and Leonidas at 6. 37 followers, everything's a body. Even the 3 spells we have in the deck are just ways to make basically a board for free. So it's all bodies, all gas, just trying to kill our opponent as fast as possible. First card we have here is Celia Sky Commander. This is a new legendary from BP09. It is a goblin. It even has the same Evo cost as goblin. It just also has an Evo 1 slapped on top. The game, you know, we've come a long way since Goblin, but Goblin has basically always, in the early days of the game at least, been an aggro staple. 1 cost 2/2 is kind of just the premium stat line that you can have, especially on an aggro card, and now that we're 9 sets in, Sword is just reaching a critical mass of this Goblin stat line. Every 1-drop we play in this deck is a goblin, and if I went higher than 9 1-drops, which I have tested with like 10 and 11, the other cards you add in are just more goblins. So, and even the other classes apart from Sword, but Sword is certainly the place where I'm seeing the most goblins here. Taking a look at its evolutions, first up we have Celia Hope's Strategist. This costs 1 to evolve into. It stays a 2/2, but it makes a 1/1 Ward Shield Guardian token on Evo. This is actually pretty insane. This is one of the only 1-drops in the game that evolves for 1 play point. Most of the time, they are 1 and cost 2 to evolve, so that you can't do them on turn 1 going second. Sukuna is kind of one of the only other ones I can think of like this. But being able to get 3/3 of stats on turn 1 going second is insane. It is just more stats than any other deck can put on the board turn 1. It's more stats than Idolmaster was able to put by playing a Karin turn 1. That was just a 3/2, and it shot itself down to a 3/1. But here we have 2 bodies with 3/3 of stats. We have a ward, which obviously we're not going to engage on our first turn. We'd rather use it to get in for damage, but this is just kind of absurd rate. And even going first, of course, it is a goblin. Turn 2 going first, it can still be good stats. And as you scale later into the game, you have the option to evolve it for 4 play points into Celia Despair's Messenger. So this is a 4/4 that on evolve makes a Steel-clad Knight and a Knight, but also has Storm. So for 1 extra play point, 1 plus 4 instead of 3 plus 1, you're essentially getting a Floral Fencer that has Storm. And we're not playing Floral Fencer in this deck. It is a little slow, surprisingly, for what we want to do, in my opinion. Though I've seen a lot of people play it. I also think the Evo deck is just a little too tight to be able to play Floral Fencer comfortably. But Celia, Despair's Messenger, is essentially our Floral Fencer alternative that's going to let us push even more aggressively. This is 5 play points for 7/7 total of stats, and 4 of that has Storm, which is just really, really good rate overall. 5 play points for 4 Storm damage is already fine. And being able to get 2 extra bodies with that and force your opponent to have to answer wide boards can be, you know, a very good way to win the game when you're trying to race as an aggro deck. The next 1-drop we have is Perseus from set 4. There are a number of goblins that you can choose from for these other 2 slots. I'm playing the 2 in this list that you'll probably see the most frequently. I should have included some of the other options on a slide here, but one of the reasons I like Perseus a lot is that he is a commander, and we'll see why a bit later. The other commander goblin that you can play, Celia, of course, herself is a commander, but there is also another new goblin in set 9. We got 3 1-cost 2/2s for sword in set 9. The other one is Axe Princess. She is also a commander, and she'll see play in a different deck a bit later, but if you wanted to go up to like 10 or 11 goblins, that's the one you would add, since she's another commander. But Perseus himself, Fanfare, he gets +1/+1 if you have at least 4 followers on your field, including himself. Obviously, that's not going to happen turn 1 or 2, but as you move later into the game, you know, when you just have 1 extra play point and a dude to put down, Perseus can come down as a 3/3, which is, you know, more threatening than a 2/2, so he scales up decently well into the mid and late game. The other 1-drop we have is, of course, Savage Swordsman. This is another new one. 1-cost 2/2 Fanfare. If you have a token follower on your field, this gets +1/+1. It is a bit easier to accomplish than having 4 total followers, since even just a 1/1 Knight living will allow him to be a 3/3. You can use this with Celia if you play her on like turn 1 going second and make the 1-drop. You can then play a Savage Swordsman on turn 2, like alongside. Really what you can do, right, is Celia turn 1, Evo, and then turn 2 Savage Swordsman and Perseus, and they'll both be 3/3s, and then you have a lot of stats on board. But otherwise, you know, he's just really easy to make a 3/3. He's a goblin. We're playing these guys because they can swing for 2 on turn 2, and when we untap, that's really what it comes down to. And of course, we do have, as I said, lots of ways to make tokens here. Moving into our 2-drops, we have Liad the Crescent Blade from set 7. This is going to forever just be one of the most powerful cards in Swordcraft. First line of text, while this is reserved on your field, it has Intimidate and Aura. Your opponent cannot target it for removal, your opponent cannot attack it with Assail, which is very good at keeping it alive. At the start of your end phase, select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 1 damage. 1 might not seem like a lot, but there are a lot of good decks playing 1/1 tokens. Sword Mirrors, of course, have Knight tokens and Shield Guardian tokens. The Vampire deck has Forest Bats everywhere. Being able to clear them for free is quite good. Especially if you go first, you play a Goblin turn 1. They make a Bat turn 1. Or they play, you know, Red Raven, potentially. You play Liad, you swing for 2 with your Goblin, you pop their Bat. Now you're 2 bodies to their, like, 0 on board. And you're just winning the race by a lot. Puppetry Forest obviously also has 1/1 puppets. They're not frequently pushing those up often, but Victoria is also an X1, so you can Liad to kill Victoria once you're past the point of them making her. Liad evolves for 2 play points into a 2/4. On evolve, deal 2 damage to an enemy leader or enemy follower, and the rest of his text is the same. Generally, going face is pretty good with the 2 damage. Liad is, you know, kind of unique in that he's basically impossible to remove until he attacks. So he always represents 2 damage once he evolves and then attacks. Minimum. if you evolve him and put the 2 into your opponent's face, he is 4 play points that always represents 4 damage, and you can spread that 4 play points out across multiple turns, which is really good at just chipping away your opponent's life. That's 20% of your opponent's starting life total that they just can't really control when they lose, and they don't have a good way to answer him. However, in some matchups, if you're a little behind on board, you can put it into a follower to make it a little easier to remove, since combining it with his 1 damage at end phase can clear out some pretty relevant stat lines. It can clear out like Paula, Dublime. It can clear guard form golems in the Earthright deck, since they are 2/3s or 3/3s if they discard for summoning drills. You can Evo, deal 2 to it, and then end phase deal 1 more while you're just sort of setting up a board. This card is also, I mentioned it's 4 damage pretty much guaranteed to face, or at least 2 if you attack with it. But because it's so difficult to remove, it also makes it one of the best bodies for stat pumps, which we have a couple ways in the deck to buff our followers' attack. Queen Magnus the Black's activated ability, Ether of the Warrior Wing at end step, or Sword Flash Panther by reviving something also gives it +1 attack. Stacking those buffs on Liad is quite good, because it means we can just get him very big to sort of like 1 or 2 shot our opponent with him once we're ready to just get in with like giant swings. And we're not really losing out on that much by leaving him untapped every turn when we could be swinging for 1 or 2. Because we're still getting that 1 damage to chip away at our opponent's board and extend to the game so that we can get to those big bursty turns at the end. Our next 2-drop is a new card from set 9. This is Prim, Innocent Princess. You may recognize her as a leader from set 2, I believe. She's a 2-cost 1/1 fanfare, summon a knight token. That's going to be a 1/1. And then for 1 play point, she can evolve into a 2/2. On evolve, search your deck for a Nonya, Silent Maid, reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle. Nonya is a 3-cost 4/4, which is a fantastic stat line, that costs 1 less to play if you have Prim. So you can set up some turns where, say like turn 4 going second, you play your Prim, Evo point, search Nonya, and then play her. And now you've gotten, 7/7 of stats on turn 4 going second, spread across 3 bodies. That is the same stat line as a Floral Fencer turn, for the same number of cards out of hand, except you also get a draw 2 discard 2 attached to it, which is actually, notably better than Floral Fencer. So yeah, very good there. Powerful card. We only play 1 evolve in this list, just because of space reasons. And we're playing 2 of the Nonya, so you can search 1 Nonya. If you draw 1 early, you'll still have 1 to search for, hopefully. I do like Nonya. Some people are pretty conflicted on this card, just because it is a 3-drop 4/4 that doesn't have like rush or anything. But I think it's quite a powerful card. It's quite good at building boards. We do play 3 base Prim, even with only 1 Evo, just because she makes a token. So she's 2-cost 2/2 stats spread across 2 bodies, which is good for things like Perseus, things like Romeo, where we're trying to go wide, and also scales better off of Leonidas in the end game if we play her. Next, we have Queen Magnus the Black, one of the 2 queens that is sort of the base cards of this deck here. 2-cost 2/2. This is notably both Commander and Fable trait. This is, yeah, strangely Fable support, though it doesn't really synergize with any of the old Fable cards, so you don't see this turned into like an actual Fable sword deck. It's just, the evolution of the aggro sword deck. We have 2-cost 2/2. While this is on your field, each Queen Hemera the White, which is, of course, the other half here, the black and white, has a sail, which Hemera is a rush body, so you're giving your rush follower a sail. They curve into each other turn 2 into turn 3. So good text there, relevant. Later in the game, you'll often be playing them on the same turn, and this can allow you to use Queen Hemera as removal for like wards and stuff. Magnus can also engage herself to give up to 2 other Swordcraft followers on your field +1 attack. This makes her a very good follow-up going second to the turn 1 Celia, where you can turn your 2/2 and 1/1 into a 3/2 and 2/1, allowing you to swing for 5 damage on turn 2. If you can go, Celia into Queen Magnus. And that's actually not even the most powerful turn 2 you can have off of that, which is insane to say. actual strong turn you can have here is with Romia. So Romia, Sonic Racer, legendary from set 6. This is a 2-cost 3/2 rush, already reasonable stats. Costs 3 to evolve, but it costs 1 less for every other follower on your field. This is obviously part of where all the tokens come into play. If we're going wide with our board, playing a lot of cheap followers, a lot of tokens, Romia can come down and evolve for 0, making her a 2-cost, she can evolve for 0, or she can evolve for, Big Thing, the powerful turn. If you turn 1, Celia, Evo Point, make the Shield Guardian. Turn 2, you can play Romia. Her Evo now only costs 1, so you can Evo Point her on turn 2. That's the big synergy here. That's the really strong turn, where you get turn 2, swing with Celia and Shield Guardian, and an evolved Romia. Also has synergy with Sword Flash Panther. It is our best target for Sword Flash Panther, since he reanimates a cost 2 or lower and gives it +1 attack. She becomes a 4/2 rush. And Sword Flash Panther himself is a body that can help reduce the cost of her Evo, so we can try to Evo her at the same turn we play the Sword Flash Panther. She evolves into a 4/3 Storm, so there is potential for going second, turn 2, attack with a 4/3, 2/2, and 1/1 for 7 total damage, and probably just win the game, because there's not much mini decks can do to answer enough of that board to not keep taking damage on the follow-up turns. But she also has the text of, on evolve, pay 3, get +1/+1 for every other follower on your field. So on a full board, she gets +4/+4, making her an 8/7. More frequently, she's probably going to be a 7/6 if you're paying this cost. But it gives her, just a little more oomph into the later turns in the game, where you can play her for 2, Evo her for like 1 or 2 play points, and then still have 3 left over to get in for a lot of damage. The last 2-drop we play is War Dog. This is a card that I actually have not really seen any lists play that other people have posted, but when I was looking for cards to fill out the deck back when Set 9 released, when I read this card, it was basically like, just instantly, I knew this was the card to be playing. It kind of ticks every box for what an aggro deck wants here. It's a 2-cost 3/2, which is the aggressive stat line. But also, fanfare, if there's a commander card on your field, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. So it is burn damage that does not care about wards, that we can play on turn 2. So if you play Perseus or Celia as your turn 1 play, War Dog can come down on turn 2. You'll have dealt 4 damage, or maybe even 5 damage to your opponent on turn 2, and you still have a 3/2 that they have to answer. There are a ton of commanders in this deck, so it is live at almost any point in the game. We have 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drops, whatever. That's just a ton of commander cards. The cards that you will frequently have on your field. So War Dog is very often live, and one of those commanders is Sword Flash Panther, which, of course, as I said, can reanimate a 2-cost or lower Swordcraft follower. So you can potentially play Sword Flash Panther, bring back a 4/2 War Dog that immediately fulfills its condition to deal 2 damage. It is not better to bring back than Romia, but in some games where you're just sort of curving out, you might have missed a turn 2 or 3 Romia, and War Dog was your turn 2 play instead. And that means that it is just, the 2-drop that happens to be in your cemetery for Sword Flash Panther to reanimate on curve. But, still has good synergy, still is a card worth reviving there. Moving into our 3-drops, we have Ether of the Warrior Wing. This is the Alter Chaotica class-shifted character from set 8, from Havencraft into Swordcraft. 3-cost 2/3. This is basically Gem Staff, but backwards. Instead of being a 3/2 that searches a Swordcraft card, this is a 2/3. It searches a commander or officer card instead of a Swordcraft follower, which has some upsides and some downsides. The upsides are that it can search spells, which Gem Staff cannot. The downsides are that it does need to be a commander or officer. So some off-traded cards, especially collaboration set cards, which aren't officers or commanders, are not legal search targets here. And in this deck in particular, Liad, who's just an assassin, and Tsubaki, who's an assassin ninja, we won't be able to search. But we're primarily going to be looking for our finisher plays here, since Ether costs 3. Grabbing anything that we can play on sort of 4, 5, 6, that range is quite good. Those are generally going to be Ralmia, Monochrome Duel, or Leonidas. The cool thing you can do here as well, turn 6, if you have the 7 Swordcraft followers in Cemetery already, since Monochrome Duel plus its activated ability, or Leonidas plus Evolve going first, are both 7 play point turns. You can turn 6, play Ether, search for another copy of Ether, play it, and then search for the card you intend to play turn 7. They'll both trigger at instep, buff each other to 4/5 stats. So you'll have 2 untapped 4/5s plus whatever else was already on your board, and make it quite hard for your opponent to deal with going into your turn 7, and potentially just give you a lot of damage to swing straight into their face. Next we have Nonya, Silent Maid. This is our search target off of a Prim, and of course costs 1 less if Prim is on our field. It has Fanfare, Draw 2, Discard 2. This is pretty good just for helping us keep finding good gas. We don't really want to ever get stuck on a hand of just like goblins and prims and stuff when we don't, like, that's not pressuring our opponent. It helps us dig towards things like Tsubaki, Sword Flash Panther, Ralmia, Monochrome Duel, Leonidas, like the good cards that are really going to be progressing our game. And at the same time, it lets us discard, which is going to help fill our cemetery with Swordcraft followers to turn on the effects of Ether of the Warrior Wing, who needs 7 Swordcraft followers in cemetery, or Tsubaki, who gains effects at both 5 in cemetery and 10 in cemetery. So Nonya can be quite a good way to accelerate that and have them online for when we need them. Next we have Queen Hemera the White, the counterpart to Queen Magnus the Black. Fanfare, she summons a Knight token, which is a 1/1. So 3 cost, 5/4 of stats with 4/3 having Rush is, again, already baseline pretty good. We're definitely pushing some like aggressive numbers in this deck. But if we already have Queen Magnus the Black on our field, we instead get 2 Knights, which means now we're looking at 3 cost, 6/5 of stats with 4/3 of it being Rush Assail. Even better. When you consider that Queen Magnus the Black can also engage to give 2 followers +1 attack, you can buff the Queen Hemera, or you can buff the Knight tokens to 2 1s, and now you're looking at like 5 total play points, giving you, what is that, 4, 5, 6, 10 attack, and 7 defense. So you have 10/7 of stats for 5 play points, which is just very efficient, super, like, just powerful numbers-wise that you wouldn't really see in a lot of other decks right now. And Queen Hemera still has more text. Strike, you get to put a Knight token into your EX area. So that's going to give you the additional 1/1 for later, which you can use in conjunction with Monochrome Duel's activated ability that we'll look at, or just to fill your board to turn on things like easier Ralmia evolution or pumps, or turn on, say, a Savage Swordsman that's in your hand or anything like that. The last 3-drop follower we have here is Tsubaki of the Demon Blade. This is the retrained Tsubaki from set 7. She's just a gold, as opposed to the original starter deck legendary. The starter deck legendary, of course, was a 6-drop that made you choose between destroying an enemy follower and gaining Storm. This is a 3-cost 4/3 that ideally will be doing both. So Fanfare, if you have at least 5 Swordcraft followers in your cemetery, we get to destroy an enemy follower. Obviously, you're not going to have this on turn 3, but by a bit later in the game, when your opponent is playing threatening cards that you need to destroy immediately, it is pretty feasible to already have 5 in cemetery, especially if you played a Nonya. And if you've just been curving out and your opponent's been killing your guys, it will fill up rather quickly. The other effect here is that while there's at least 10 Swordcraft followers in your cemetery, which admittedly is a little harder to reach, but by the time you need this effect, you can have it, this follower has Storm. So this essentially late game is a 3-cost 4/3, remove a ward plus storm your opponent for 4. This can be a very strong way to close out games, especially under a Leonidas Amulet, or in conjunction with other storm cards like Ralmia or Celia coming out in the same turn. Next up, we have Sword Flash Panther. This is arguably, behind Ralmia, the strongest card in the deck. I see people cut this down to 2 copies sometimes, and let me tell you, I think that is absolutely incorrect. So this is a 4-cost 4/3 rush, slightly worse stats than some of the other things we've seen for the cost, but the fanfare here is going to make up for it for sure. Select a Swordcraft follower that costs 2 or less in your cemetery, summon it, and give it +1 attack. We have plenty of options here. Generally, your best case scenario is going to be summoning Rolmia and evolving it to Storm for 5 immediately. But depending on what else you need, you could get Wardog to burn for 2. You could get Queen Magnus the Black to pump 2 other bodies on your board. Or you could get Leod the Crescent Blade to bring him out as a 2/3 that will evolve into a 3/4. And act as a bit of removal or a bit of burn damage, or just as a body for you to stack extra buffs on. A lot of the time, if you're playing Swordflash Panther on turn 4, what you have available for target is going to be quite limited, and it's just going to depend on what you happened to play on turn 2 or 3. But later in the game, you should have a Rolmia in Cemetery, and that's definitely what you're going to be going for. The only spell we play in this deck, and our only 5-drop, is Monochrome Duel. So this is the black and white card itself. 5 cost, search your deck for a Queen Hemera the White and Queen Magnus the Black. Summon them, then shuffle your deck. Give them +1/+1. This is going to put both queens into play, which of course is going to trigger Queen Hemera the White's fanfare to summon 2 knights, since you will have Magnus in play. And it's going to give them both +1/+1. So for 5 play points, we are getting, oh boy, that is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 attack and 9 defense. We're getting 10/9 of stats for 5, but you can engage the Queen Magnus to give +2 attack, of course. So there's actually 12/9 of stats for 5, which is absurd. 12/9 across 4 bodies. And that's not even where it ends, since of course Hemera's Rush Assail, so she can clear wards or untapped followers or whatever you need, but when she strikes, you will also get another knight, so you're getting even more value there for free. And Monochrome Duel has an activated ability. For 2 play points, you can banish it from your cemetery to give each knight on your field +1 attack and Storm. So these 2 1/1s are going to become 2/1 Storms. If you pump them with Queen Magnus the Black, that is 3/1 Storms. So now you're looking at 7 play points. You're getting 14/9 of stats, and you're getting 6 storm damage. If you move up to 8 play points by swinging with Hemera first and then paying 1 to push up that knight, you can go from 14 to 15. Was that 15/10 with 8 storm damage? Yeah, 15/10 with 8 storm damage. Or not even 15/10. 16/10 with 8 storm damage, which is, yeah, that's just a lot of numbers for 1 card in hand to do that. Makes this very strong. A lot of games you'll just want to run this out on turn 5 to make really big boards. You can stock up all the tokens in your EX area from the Hemeras you've played throughout the game. 2 tokens or 3 tokens, ideally, to just push up on a later turn and give them all Storm. Or if you have Knights live from Prims or Hemeras or Celias or anything like that, you can just buff any of them that can already attack. But yeah, just playing this out on turn 5, getting a ton of stats that your opponent has to deal with or else take a lot of damage, can lead to a turn 6 Rolmia Evo buff itself if enough of them live, or, you know, whatever other ways to just keep rebuilding. And then, of course, if you play this on turn 7, you can immediately storm in for 6+ damage. The last card we play here is Leonidas. We only play 1 copy since we can search it off of Ether in the games where it's important. A lot of matchups you're not going to need this. It's more just games that go a little longer. 6 cost 5/6 from set 2 evolves for 1 play point to a 6/7. On evolve, select an enemy follower on the field, deal 5 damage to it and this follower, so he shoots himself down to be a 6/2, and then has a last words to summon a Leonidas' resolve token. So ideally you're going to be playing him, evolving him, removing 1 body with his Evo effect, and then since he's a 6/2, you can immediately crash him into another body to generate a Leonidas' resolve. Leonidas' resolve is an amulet that whenever a Swordcraft follower is put onto your field, you'll give it +3/+3 and rush. This essentially means that any storm turn that you're playing out afterwards is just that much stronger. Celia will now be a 7/7 storm that generates a 5/5 and 4/4. meaning she is 16/16 of total stats for 5 play points. The monochrome duel, if you play it, you're now getting, like, I don't even want to do the math, you're just getting unthinkable amounts of stats. It's like +12 in additional stats. So if you use all of the pumps, you're looking at, like, oh goodness, what was it before? It was 14.9, is that what it was? So you're looking at, like 26, 21 of stats, and you're storming in with 1/4/4s that you're pumping twice, so you're doing like 12 storm damage with 26 stats on board. It's just unreasonable math that's just always going to kill your opponent after you resolve Leonidas. They like, it basically means that by turn 8 you will win every game if your opponent hasn't killed you yet. So fantastic card. The one thing you do have to be careful of is if your opponent doesn't have enough followers for you to crash into, you might not just want to play it as a 6/7 or 6/2 after removing one thing. It can threaten your opponent by being 6 attack that they have to remove or get hit by, but if they choose to remove it using Banish, such as Paradise Vanguard or Price of Magic, you will lose your opportunity to make the token. So think carefully about what matchups you're playing it into and what cards they might have to remove it. Looking at the deck as a whole, very powerful deck. It's definitely the strongest aggro deck that I think the game has had thus far. Pros, you have a fast curve, strong, cheap bodies. It's very easy to go wide with a lot of followers, and quite often you're playing followers that have more than one defense, meaning you're not as much of collateral damage to Angelic Barrage from all these like vampire matchups as you might think. If you're going wide with like 2/2s, 3/2s, things like that you're just playing a lot of, Liad being a 1/3, etc., you actually have pretty good resilience to anything bar like Golem Rampage. You also have a lot of recursion and efficient rebuilding potential. Monochrome Duel, of course, is an entire board for 5 play points. Sword Flash Panther can make pretty wide boards pretty easily and get back your very threatening cards, etc. And Ether, of course, can search out whatever of these we need to continue playing the game. And with all this Storm, obviously we're threatening our opponent throughout the entire game, so we don't really need giant bursty finisher turns, but we do have them available for when we need them. Cons of the deck, you can struggle to keep up with a lot of healing, wards, and removal into the mid and late game. Decks like Earthright, you know, if they open like turn 1 Beastface Mage into turn 2 Red Hot Ritual to pop one guy, Beastface Mage effect to pop the second guy, and they still have Beastface Mage on turn that you have to deal with going into your, like, turn, I guess your turn 2, and then they're going to start hitting, like, Caradwin turns, Riley turns, Faust turns, and then it's just going to be, like, impossible to keep up. And especially if they're playing things like Gingerbread House to heal 3 at a time, they're putting out Guard Form Golems to block you. It can be very difficult to keep up with all that stuff. That is certainly one of your worst matchups. But even against decks like Puppetry, you have to pressure them fast, because once they get to the point of playing a lot of Lloyds and putting out a lot of numbers, they can burst you down by removing your guys at the same time that they're threatening you more than you can. This deck itself does not have very much defensive capability. You don't have wards outside of the Shield Guardians, and you don't have removal effects outside of, like, your followers attacking for the most part, or Liad specifically, or Leonidas, I guess, but very few and far between. Ideally, your removal is being so threatening that your opponent has to crash their bodies into you, and that keeps their board clear. If they are able to, you know, establish more threatening followers than you, which is hard to do, but possible, you're going to struggle to keep up with those. And of course, here is the deck as a whole. The one solution I've seen some people play to that last problem is to add Unbridled Fury, the starter deck 1-cost spell that deals X, where it's the number of followers you have. It's quick timing. It can get up to 5 damage. It's often like 1 play point, deal 2 or deal 3. I don't like that card in this deck just for the sole reason of it does slow down your fast starts, and I think you would more often rather just have the very bursty fast starts that win you games outright than having access to the removal spell that, like, might re-stabilize you in a game where your opponent's gotten a big board. But yeah, Here is, of course, the deck and the Evo deck. As I said, a bit tight on the Evo space, though you can play around with some numbers there just a little bit. And if you want to check out the deck log page to see the deck for yourself or copy and edit or whatever else, 77CH2, or you can use the link in the description. Thank you all for watching. This is a deck that I was testing a lot prior to Worlds. I ended up not playing it, but I think it is one of the strongest aggro decks that we've had in the game thus far. And if you're a fan of aggro or Swordcraft, you should definitely try it out. I'll have some more videos coming soon. Until then, there should be some stuff on the screen for you to check out. Otherwise, I will see you next time.